at one point in the future, whether that's 5 years from now, 3 years from now, or maybe 10 years from now, it will have the ability to remember everything about your life.
Welcome to the In the Arena podcast. My name is Jared Miguez, a co-host on this podcast that brings you the inspiring stories of our clients who are leaders and innovators across different industries in Southeast Louisiana. They are visionary entrepreneurs, savvy real estate professionals, media creators, military business owners, and community champions. And we are going to showcase the remarkable achievements and share their personal stories. Tune in for insightful conversations, valuable lessons, and motivational stories that are going to reveal their secrets to success and offer you insights to help you on your own path. Welcome to In the Arena podcast. All right, we got Marcus McGehee on In the Arena podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Very excited today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Coming from Paradise to good old Louisiana.
St. Pete, Florida, to Covington, and eventually to Ethel.
Bethel,
Nice.
Louisiana.
Ethel,
Louisiana. Dude, I literally just said that town 5 minutes ago. We have a closing that's happening in Ethel, Louisiana, which is like one of the 3,000 we've done.
Wow.
In Ethel, Louisiana, which is funny.
Love it.
Well, cool. Like today, we talked about our podcast is based on how can we help our business clients and audience become better business people. Mm-hmm. And generally, we're talking about anything from leadership to operating systems, being more efficient. And it's interesting now over the last 18 months that AI has come to be a very big part of that process. And I'm excited to let people know about what you're doing and the business that you own that is literally built to help people learn how to be better efficient with AI.
Absolutely.
Eliminate the fears.
Yes.
So that people can use it as the good tool it is.
100%. And I'm hoping that this conversation can demystify or pull people back from the idea that AI is going to take my job and going to make me more efficient at my job, give me more opportunity. So why don't we talk about you and a little bit of your background and how you got into this space?
Sure. Yeah. So thanks, first of all, for having me. I love that you also used the AI word demystified. I think that is one of the most ubiquitous like AI word. Yeah. So thanks for tossing
Props,
that in there.
J-Rod.
Way to go to actually humanize the word some so people won't be like, it's immediately AI. Yeah. So I'm born and raised here. I spent 31 years, I believe, in this state. I was born in Jackson. I lived in Ethel from when I was 11 to when I graduated, and then I moved to Baton Rouge to go to LSU. I was at LSU for 5 years from 2007 to 2012. I was on the track team there for all 5 of those years. And
All right, what'd you do? Gotta know.
I was a pole vaulter.
That's cool.
Yeah. I'm still fortunate enough to be on the top 10 list all time at LSU.
Heck
Nice.
yeah.
So I'm pretty proud of
Only
that.
winners in the arena.
Yeah.
That's right. And then out of that, I had my first job was in marketing with NOLA Media Group. So NOLA.com and Times-Picayune in New Orleans.
Nice.
They opened an office in Baton Rouge. And that was my first job. I was in the support system side of things, and then I eventually moved into sales, so selling digital advertising in Baton Rouge. Nice. And then I moved to Gray Television, which is formerly Raycom, WAFB in Baton Rouge. Yeah. And I was there until 2019. And then in 2019, I started my own agency, mainly focusing on Google ads and Facebook ads and kind of digital marketing in general, because that was my whole career up until that point. Yeah. And I kept that going until 2022. Then I realized that people don't really, we can get leads, but a lot of business owners struggle with the converting part. And the reason why is because they don't have the system. So they don't have a CRM, they don't have something to automatically text somebody that submits a lead form, and they're not getting back to them in time. So I switched over to providing a CRM solution to build all of these systems for people, and then I provided them with the marketing strategy. And at the end of 22, ChatGPT came out and changed my whole life.
This is the key.
That's it, yeah. And I got access to it. I was I was niching down to mental health professionals at that time at the end in like Q4 of 22. And I was building a digital marketing course to teach them how to use the software and the systems that I was building so that they could, get more business and become a stickier client. ChatGPT came out, and I was like, oh, all right, well, I'm going to use this to build all this course material to explain all of the stuff that's in my brain. Yeah. And that was it. I just used it. I didn't know how to use it, like what you were and weren't supposed to do. And so I just started using it. And I was already using the technology GPT-3 in another like marketing and copywriting tool before that. Was a lot less capable and did a lot less, but still pretty cool for the time. So I was somewhat familiar with it. And then that came out, and I just asked it everything and anything, and I just went all in. So all of my clients' work, all of my work, everything, all of the rest of Q4 of 22, and then in the beginning of 23, I was like, is nobody else actually like doing this?
Yeah.
Or what are we doing here? And I have a weekly entrepreneur social club I go to every Thursday, and there's a lot of entrepreneurs in St. Pete, a ton. And I had given some workshops there before, and I said, all right, well, I'm going to give a workshop on this and put one together. And I think I ended up doing probably like 5 or 6 of those in 23 in the beginning of it. And I went all around Tampa and St. Pete. I did lunch and learn, chamber meetings, Rotaries, all these other events, and just kept going. And I met with anybody and everybody that I could because I wanted to know what you wanted to do with AI and how we could do it to get this experience. And all I asked for was a review in exchange for that, right? So that carried me all the way into 2023 and 24. It's kind of when things really took off, and then I'm here now.
Yeah.
I love the value alignment because I feel like what you do with AI is what we try to do with operating systems. It's like when you have something that you know can help someone, you just want to get it out there.
Yeah.
It's just like anybody that wants to talk about it, you see the pain that they're having. You're like, I got a solution for you.
Yeah.
Hear me out.
Absolutely.
When did you feel like it actually caught wind? Because I mean, I'm thinking about my timeline with AI, and like I don't even think it was
You're recent.
like much. Yeah, last year maybe at the end of the year where I really started like with figuring out how to have. And it was I was actually at a presentation, and the lady on stage showed how to prompt chat to get like a very basic social media plan. Mm-hmm. And then I just went down the rabbit hole. Mm-hmm. And it was just like, once you teach it how to think and act and talk and like your values and the things, it literally is, it could be another version of you or a different aspect of you that you may not know that exists. And it's pretty incredible. Like, what point did you feel like it took off?
Well, I guess it kind of depends on what your definition of taking off is. When did it take off in terms of kind of catching steam and me getting more clients, or really when it clicked for me?
Well, both. Yeah.
So it clicked for me really early on, but the turning point moment for me was, I think, in about March of 2023. I was working with a stem cell clinic in California, and I don't really know much about stem cells. And I work with a lot of businesses and a lot of different industries, but not really that one. The client that I was working with, they didn't have a strong marketing presence, and they didn't really have a lot of assets to go on for that particularly. So I had to think a little bit outside of the box. And what I ended up doing was, I think this was right around the time of GPT-4, when GPT-4 first came out. And I took all the stuff that I had for the client, and I said, here's what I know about this client and what I kind of think about their audience, because they'd given me some of that. I want you to assume the role of this person and tell me what you do want to see from this business, what you don't want to see, what are your fears, what are your frustrations, what are your goals and aspirations. Just assume this persona, and I want to have a conversation with you. And ChatGPT named this person and started telling me exactly what they thought about the brand and the business and the procedure.
You had an onboarding deep dive with AI.
Yep. And so to be able to have it converse with me as if it were another person, talking to the ideal customer avatar for this business, to tell me, this is what I want to see on a sales page, this is what I want to see in your marketing materials. That was the eye-opening moment for me. And I actually took that to my mentor. He's now my mentor, and we eventually turned this into a partnership with a nonprofit from Michigan, and we did something similar with a tool that it's in beta stages right now. The startup is in beta, but we're doing that to help victims of childhood trauma and help educators and administrators use AI to get a better empathic understanding of what the students are going through and help them design and alter their classroom experience for that.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that we talk a lot about when it comes to the operating system of somebody is they've got to have a baseline and a foundation of who they are as a person, who they're looking to attract in order for you to actually be able to do that. So when you're working with a new client, how important is it that they actually have taken the time to understand their values, their purpose, who their ideal client is, in order for you to be able to have that conversation with the right person? Well,
Now it's not so important because I'm not in the marketing side as much.
Gotcha.
But before, it was very important, right? Because if they don't have that, it's difficult for me to build things from a marketing perspective that really align and speak to their audience. So if we're trying to come up with that and they don't have it clearly defined and I'm having to do it, it's just not coming from a place of authenticity, I think.
sure.
So it is more or less difficult to do that. But with the advent of AI, it's a lot easier to do this because, you can just do, hey, this person doesn't have a lot of stuff. What, based on their industry and their business, ask me some questions. Let me answer some questions and see if we can kind of suss this profile out.
Yeah.
So that's what we typically do. I mean, that's one of the biggest questions that we get. People are like, okay, I'll do great at marketing, so give me your marketing plan. I'm like, whoa, like we're lawyers in a title company. You run an urgent care. Like that's not,
not the
it's
same.
not going to be the same. And who's your ideal client? So I typically walk them through exercises and they leave our meeting with bullet points, but I don't pressure them to put it into, some articulate purpose or a well-stated value. I'm like, all right, now go put this in chat and then come back to me and we'll vet it. But it's become a tool that I use, which saves us time in the business planning process to just say, leave with these bullet points that we've worked on to determine that you at least know who you are in that format, and it'll help you put it together into a plan.
So this is a really great point, and it's something I really talked about a lot in 23 and 24 as well. I did a keynote speech at the AI Expo in Austin, Texas last year, and it was around building a story brand. Are you guys familiar with that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, so I loved it. Right as I was making the switch from my previous marketing company to my current brand, a friend of mine recommended me to read that book. Loved the book because it really aligned a lot with what I already did.
Yeah.
And it kind of took it to the next level. And right as I was doing, kind of this brand switch, still using ChatGPT very heavily. And I went to it one day and I said, okay, I am trying to rebrand to this business. And I just brain dumped all the things that made me because I wanted to pour myself into this brand. And I said, can you assume the role, same thing, can you assume the role of Donald Miller and walk me through the story brand process to create the story brand for my business? And it said, sure. First part of the story brand is, all this other stuff. What is yours? And I answered the questions. Okay, great. The next step is this. And I just went through step by step of that framework and answered all the questions. And at the end, it says, all right, well, here is your story brand according to the framework and the answers that you gave me. And that's something that you pay a marketing agency thousands of dollars for, right?
Yeah.
And it came out beautifully for me. Like one of the things that I get complimented on all the time is my brand and how well put together it is, because of that process and also my commitment to it. So I fully endorse people going and using ChatGPT to do these processes, because there are frameworks that exist in the business world that we don't need to reinvent the wheel for, right? So ChatGPT and the other models will know what those frameworks are. And if they don't, they know of them, but you can go and say, all right, well, here is this framework, or here's the SWOT analysis framework, whatever else. Help me do this for my business. And I don't know where to start, so ask me questions first to do this framework for me. Yeah. And anything that you're paying a professional for, you can get similar levels of advice depending on how skilled you are, right? But it's a great starting point, at least, to go through that and have one of these AI models give you a step-by-step guide of how to complete these frameworks.
Yeah. I'll give another example of it, because I totally agree with you. And it took me a minute to get it to click in my brain too. But I had the moment when not only did the lady on stage told me to ask Chat the questions about helping me create a marketing plan, but I went to a dietitian in town just to kind of get some ideas on what I needed to do to eat more healthy for myself. And she was giving me some ideas. And I said, well, can you give me a weekly meal plan? Mm-hmm. And she was like, no, I don't really do weekly meal plans. I'll tell you what you can eat. I said, okay, well, that made me mad. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to go take everything you just told me, everything that I want, all the cookbooks that I want to eat from.
There you go.
And I'm going to tell Chad, this is my stats. This is how much I want to weigh. This is how much I do weigh. This is what I do this is what I do for a living. This is the books I want to eat from. Now take me and create me a weekly meal plan, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, with the macros and how much in volume I need to eat every day. And it just gave me exactly what I asked for. It was crazy. And then I said, okay, now I want you to create a grocery list that I can go to Rouse's in Louisiana and pick those groceries. And it just gave me the list of things I needed, how much I needed. And I was like, so it makes you, that context allowed me to realize, okay, if I give it all the things that I want it to know, and then ask it the questions, or to get it to ask, like you said, ask the question you need from me so you can give me better results. Mm-hmm. It will learn you to the point that it can give you what you're looking for.
The one key thing that you said that I think, because there have been more and more people have discovered that hack, right, with ChatGPT of creating a meal plan, but I love that you also included the cookbook aspect of it, because how it's trying to assimilate all this information it's seen on the internet. And there's a lot of really great recipes out on the internet, but if it's picking and choosing and doing this, it doesn't have taste buds. It's not going to know if it tastes good or not.
Yeah.
But if you give it a cookbook, like, and say, I love this, use this as your basis, then you're cooking with hot grease.
Yeah. I gave five cookbooks, and I was honestly trying to show my wife who just was like, I don't like, there's no way this is going to work. And I was like, what books?
You were showing your wife that she's wonderful? Is that what you're doing?
I was trying to be very
Diplomatic.
conscious about what she wants to eat. And I was like, what books you want to eat from? And I like put it in there and I hit enter and it just, she was like, well, that's cool. So I think it's great. I want to just take a little bit of a step back and help people understand like what is an AI model?
Yeah.
Like what is it and what is it doing? So that people can kind of understand like what the foundation of what this is.
It's not the devil? I thought
It is not the devil,
okay.
despite what many people think about it. And there's also still a lot of people who think it's junk because of their limited exposure to it. Most people don't pay for the full version of ChatGPT because it's we're mainly talking a lot about ChatGPT, but in 2025, we're in the middle of 2025 now, most of the other competitors are just as good as GPT-4 and 4.0 right now, then it's not so much of a gap anymore. So they haven't had as much experience with the most intelligent models. So they think they tried it once, it sucks, I'm not going to do that, I'm not going to try it again. But essentially what large language models are very sophisticated word prediction engines. So auto text on your phone, if you're in your email, it'll try to complete the sentence for you. That's ChatGPT boiled down, but it's on a scale of order of magnitude higher, much higher. So it is trained on all of the internet up until certain points in time, depending on which company you're going to. And it is looking for patterns of what it's seen in its training data to complete your request and your prompt of what you've put in. And the companies have trained it and they have kind of taken out all the junk. They've asked it to perform completions, and then they score them thumbs up, thumbs down, and they kind of rank them like that. And there's also a process called reinforcement learning with human feedback, which is basically like that process again of give us a bunch of completions for this prompt. We're going to give it a rank, positive or negative, and then we're also going to say, all right, this is wrong because this, or this is good answer because of this. And it's like giving ChatGPT an English paper assignment teaching it, right? And so it has that little bit of extra context with every time. So the next time that it gets a similar question, it has more context and it gets a little bit of a reasoning capability to it. That's a very simple version of explaining that. I don't know if it's actually simple because it was still pretty technical, but it is looking for patterns in its training data and what the feedback it's been given to perform the most appropriate answer to your prompt or question.
So I think a lot of the fear, is people always like, you put garbage in, you're going to get garbage out. So when you say they, who are we talking about with they? And where is this information, right?
Yeah, so you're talking about they as in the colloquial they of those that made the technology? Yeah, so it's actually a very big issue with bias, right? Because there is a lot of... this technology is born and bred in San Francisco, and there's a lot of white males in San Francisco controlling this technology, and there is a lot of implicit bias that has gone into large language models, not intentionally, but unintentionally because of the material that's been on the internet is skewed in that direction. Those people that are creating these technologies don't know. They don't have the shared experiences of other cultures, so that's not shining through in all cases when training these models. And there's been some pretty public incidents with Google's first big image model or something like that. It ended up, I don't remember the exact story, but it was a big blowback because they put the images of the U.S. presidents, but they were all black. So that wasn't it was a big deal because it was saying George Washington is not a white guy, right?
Yeah.
So there is a lot of issue with that, and there is a lot of people who are concerned with that. But the colloquial the people that are making these technologies, they are doing the work to fix that.
Yeah.
And they are making a concentrated effort on it too.
Well, I can imagine, if you spend enough time in ChatGPT, you'll get 2 prompts that'll come up and say, this one better than that one. Yeah. And I'm sure that's me training the model myself, but that all kind of probably goes into the funnel and it helps train it from that standpoint too, where they're looking for everybody to add to the knowledge base of this and give some context of whether it's giving you the answer you want or not, right?
Yeah. Sam Altman actually said that those thumbs up and thumbs down in ChatGPT, when you see them next to your answer, that actually makes a big difference when you do that. And I never do it, honestly. But when you start looking at that at scale, it does actually make a big difference. So they're kind of crowdsourcing the training a little bit too.
Kind of like blockchain technology, right? It's like everybody's kind of validating the information as it's going in real time, and it's gonna I'm sure it's gonna learn exponentially based on the fact that everybody is now contributing to its knowledge base and expanding, which is a crazy thing to think about.
Yeah, and that's a really good point too that I hadn't really thought about of from the perspective of different nationalities, different ethnicities, and cultures. If those people are actually using the tools to give feedback, you are in a way evening the scales a little bit because you're pointing out misinformation or you don't really get to give it extra context. I think maybe some.
So if you want to correct the issue, be a user.
Yeah, exactly.
Be a user, give your feedback.
One of my old coworkers from NOLA.com actually is a reporter. He is he's teaching a university class right now on race and AI actually, and he's doing a really great series on TikTok. His name is Quincy Hodges. Look him up.
Very cool.
He's doing the course for race and AI in his students, and I follow along. And one of the topics that he brought up recently was that his students, which are primarily black, were hesitant to, I think, how did he pose it? I think they said that they wanted to gatekeep a little bit of their lingo and culture and not give it for training data. And that was his point of, how do you feel about this? Do you think in the pursuit of equality, should we be taking action and correcting and providing this information, or should we keep that as a part of our own culture and not give it over freely? And I was think earlier to the video, so there wasn't too many comments on it, but there were a lot of people who were leaning towards not providing that information, but there were also, again, some people who wanted to provide it too.
Yeah. It's a good open conversation to watch.
Yeah, I'm sure absolutely. A lot of people feel that way. So let's talk about, what businesses are you working with right now that are really being affected by AI?
Affected
in
a positive way. Like, I mean, just which ones are being impacted? Like, which people are taking advantage of AI and are using it and that are changing their industry relatively quickly?
So we don't have a lot of volume on clients. We have a smaller volume of clients, but larger projects. So I don't have a full depth into the types of industries, but we work a lot with nonprofits, and we work a lot with SMBs, primarily kind of like in the $1 to $10 million range, home service industries as well, and then manufacturing. Manufacturing has actually been one of the businesses that I've done the most with, really. So the majority of it has come from automations. We're doing a lot of automation work, and then the rest of it is creating content, whether that's marketing content or just any written type of content, whether that's proposals, sales documents, RFPs, things like that, things that have frameworks, existing skeletons that they pull off of, using that to create new content and do things with less effort, essentially.
I just feel that every industry stands to be impacted positively because studying operating systems, I say this all the time, it's the same business principles and they do not change, and we are not reinventing the wheel. You might find a book that resonates with you because it's written in a way that you digest it easily. You might find that they put phrases well together and you can attach yourself to those phrases, but when you come down to the general principles, they're all the same. That's perfect for AI. Because that's what it has been pulling and is going to pull. That's been available since the beginning of the internet, right? And so it's just going to build your same model and your same system based off of principles that do not need to be recreated.
And that's a good point too, of like every business, no matter what it is, it has to do some of those same principles.
Same thing.
You have to write blogs for SEO content. You have to write social media content. You have to write SOPs if you want to have scalable systems and repeatable processes. You need to have things like press releases or email templates. All of those things are universal. No matter what industry you're in, you still need to do it. And each of those are ripe for some sort of AI transformation.
Yeah. So let's go down that rabbit hole a little bit this is going to kind of be like an even more organic conversation than we've already had, but I'm interested in hearing what you have to say. Like if you were a business and you wanted to enhance your SOPs, how would you start that process with a language model, whether it's chat or whatever, to start having it be able to understand you as a unique company, understand your industry, understand your existing processes, and start enhancing that?
Well, it's very easy, honestly. The first thing is to go through the process. If it is a non-screen process, well, even if it isn't non-screen process, I'm just going to go with the screen process first. let's say you want to create an SOP for how to put a new contact in your CRM. Very simple. Let's just use that as an example. You start a screen recording, and there are tools out there that will do this for you, right? But
we subscribe to one.
Yeah, Scribe.
Scribe.
Yeah, Scribe. I like.
We subscribe to Scribe.
Yeah. So you start with your screen recording, and if you don't want to pay for Scribe, record the process, walk through it. This is the first thing that we do. You need to do this because of that, and be sure you do this. If you come into this scenario, do that, and just dictate the process, record the screen for each step, and then shut it off. Now it's more accessible because this only used to be done with Google AI Studio. They were the only model that could take video, but you go take that video and you put it into Google AI Studio and you say, here's the video of me doing this process, write an SOP. And it's going to listen to what you have to say, and it will also read what's on the screen to capture the context from that. And then it will give you the full SOP document from the audio that you had, as well as the text that was on the screen.
If I had I'm sure if you're using HubSpot or Salesforce, like it probably has a lot more to pull from when it relates to those two because those are big products.
It won't necessarily automatically do that unless you say, this is HubSpot. There may have been some things that I missed. Use your knowledge of HubSpot while you're creating this SOP in addition to my video, right? Gotcha. It may do what you're saying, like unintentionally, especially as the models have gotten smarter. Oh, well, it's HubSpot, and he didn't say this. So this is the internal thinking, right? He didn't say this, so I'm going to put that in the SOP just because.
Yeah.
So it could do that. It's just not guaranteed to.
I generally tell people to start there. Just make a very simple checklist, put it in a chat GPT and bring it to me. And then I can audit and say, okay, you didn't tell it to put a time frame. So how quickly can your team typically do this? You know, what's the expectation that you set with the client? And you do those little nuances that it otherwise can't provide. But it'll give you a general format. And most of the people, because we do personality assessments a lot with our clients, they fall within that category of someone that wants to be told how to do something. And they're hesitant to get started because of the how. To me, this tool is what's removing that barrier that people are slow to take action by just saying, start your format and we can work for it from there.
Yeah, great point too, because that's what I just gave is a good starting point. And you as the practitioner, the expert, whoever is kind of controlling this session, you get to look at it and say, all right, well, this is a good starting point. This is 60%, 80% of good, but it missed some certain things that I know from doing this so many times. Can you put that in? Because what we found is that when we do that, it increases satisfaction 10%, whatever it's going to be, right? And it's just a starting point. You go back and forth and you refine it from there and you add more stuff on top of that. So
especially something like an SOP, because that's a living document forever for the existence of your business. So you continue to add it.
Yeah. And also too, that is a great starting point of once those are done, you kind of have a really good blueprint. And this is another thing we talk about a lot is data quality. If you don't have data, if you don't have written things, documentation, you are going to have a tough time with AI. It's just, it needs the documentation for what you're doing specifically. If it's not something that mainstream that everybody else is doing, it's not going to know. And it's crap in, crap out, as you said earlier, right? So if you're going to go and do something to make a good impact, SOPs is great. You can then take all that SOP documentation and put it into a custom GPT. And instead of having somebody try to read this SOP, they can just go directly to the bot and say, what am I supposed to do after I install this? Am I supposed to do this or this? And instead of them having to email them or email their boss to get that answer, maybe it's 9 at night, maybe it's on the weekend, they get an answer instantaneously. Wow. And it's pulling from the SOP documents that you created, and you know that it is exactly accurate on what the process is going to be. They can get their answer immediately and move on to the next thing. So there's no lag in that.
You're kind of answering something that's been bouncing around my head a lot because I'm on the people side of our business, right? You know, when leadership, that's what it goes into, and trying to make your systems and your people more efficient. And it's been troubling to me to watch as a parent of young daughters, but then also, you know, leading people, how inefficient we've become because of how on we are all the time, because of the constant distractions. And so it's like, on one hand, I'm nervous for the future of our workforce because people are so distracted. They don't have those intentional time blocks of focus that allow you to be efficient during your work hours. And then they never get a balance or a peace of mind, I guess you would say, because they're not turning themselves off. But you introduce AI and it closes that gap because all of that time that you would have otherwise spent 5-10 years ago, starting that format, drafting it, writing it out, it's now there and available for you faster. So it's really people are worried about it replacing your job, but it's become necessary because how we as humans are just starting to function.
Yeah. It's a very fine line with what you talked about with where we're going, especially as it relates to education and the younger generation. Yeah. Sam Altman actually just did an interview within the last couple of weeks, CEO of OpenAI, right? And he broke down how the different age groups use ChatGPT. The boomers are using ChatGPT as a Google search replacement. Millennials are using it like that, but they're also using it much more effectively and efficiently to solve problems and do things, but it's still kind of more transactional. Gen Z, he said, is using it like a life advisor. They're asking it everything. Everything. And I'm a huge proponent of AI, obviously. I don't know how that shakes out in terms of education.
Long term, right?
Specifically because big, huge New York Times article came out last week talking about ChatGPT in the education force and how all the college students are using it and essentially kind of skipping their way through college.
Bypassing the actual learning.
I didn't read the article, so I need to go and read it. We learned about it on our regular podcast we listened to. It's about 30 minutes long to go through and read it, so I haven't given it its true due diligence. But
we might have to put it in the caption. Yeah,
that is a very valid point of not learning anything. But I have a pretty strong counterpoint because I have learned more since November of 2022 than I learned in all of the years previous combined.
Well, I think it's the immediate reasoning that's being taken, but you're learning faster because you're getting information faster, which is why I say it's filling the gap. Yeah. So I do think it has its place as long as we are setting that foundation of reasoning.
And
now, someone like you and I that are inquisitive to how
right.
the AI is working, we're still reasoning and we're still seeing how we can, use the tool further. And so we're still doing our own reasoning. Yeah. But not everybody's doing that when they're just saying, give me an answer.
Yeah, that's for sure my bias shining through of like, I didn't like to learn in school. I very much was like, let me go play sports and just not be present here and worry about it later. But now I love to learn to do a lot of the technical stuff that I really never would have thought possible. I'm not a coder. I don't know how to program or anything like that. I don't know how to write code. I can read it and understand kind of principles and things like that. But I have done more actual programming and like stuff like that with ChatGPT and Microsoft Copilot and Gemini because I'm able to take a screenshot of what I'm doing and give it to GPT and say, here's the code I'm working on, or here's what I need to do. Help me do this and how do I do that? And it will explain the process of how to do that. So I feel like I shortcut my way into the low code environment that I now live in just by using the AI tools. And if they didn't exist, I would have not been able to do any of this. But it does take that specific type of person. Not everybody's going to do that.
So from a learning standpoint, using it as a tool to learn. Yeah. But it now, and specifically ChatGPT has that function of being able to start a group conversation and a folder where you can like tell it the context of where you want it to kind of start. And I went to a retreat at church in Manresa a couple months ago, and I was creating a chat where I wanted to kind of base some of the things I wanted to know about the Catholic Church, like from the folder. And I asked, I told it like some of the people that I wanted it to pull information from. Do you think, based on what you know, that it gives you the true and accurate information from that? And I know we kind of talked about it a little bit, but like, let's just say you wanted to go and like learn how to think like a lawyer, right? And you wanted to say like, I want to base it off of like this person who helped write this book. Yes. That was a professor in law school and he focused on this area of the law. Like how much can you rely on that to give you the true and accurate information? Do you think, I know you probably don't know the answer to that off the top of your head, but like, do you think that it will give you actual true and accurate information?
So what you're talking about is projects, the folders.
Yeah, the project folder.
So projects and custom GPTs are similar. They function similarly in the fact that you can provide the system assistant instructions and say, this is how you're supposed to behave write in this tone of voice, at this reading comprehension level, do this set of processes, whatever else, and that is its default operating system. And for every chat in the custom GPT or in the folder, will follow that instructions first, and then it will follow your prompt. And both of those give you the ability to upload the files to use as reference. When you add the reference context and the instructions, it really greatly reduces the amount of hallucinations that it will give you of inaccurate information.
Interesting.
So you can rely pretty heavily on that. And I will put that with an asterisk of always make sure that you're trying to check the information afterwards. Don't ever just straight publish it.
Yeah.
But if you're giving the model the documents to go and reference specifically rather than trying to say, pull this out of your memory, right? Your chances of getting good, accurate information go way up.
Wow. Yeah, that's one of the things I've used it for. It's I'm learning different things, and someone will come across something that within the line of work, and I'll just want to go explore it more, and I'll ask it to give me references, and it'll point me to where it got the information from, and the books and the websites, and you can go down we're the presentation tomorrow on 1031 exchange, right? If you have something you want to explore further, it's can you pull the IRS code where they're referencing the specific tax rule that you're talking about to be able to go and read it, and then what context are you pulling from to be able to give these answers and stuff like that. I've learned a lot just from doing that I would have otherwise had to go spend hours of Googling something, going to a publication and reading the whole thing, maybe to have it be kind of on point what I'm looking for. But after I've given it the chat the context, and then it pulls the information from that and other sources, it gives me what I'm actually looking for, not having to kind of piecemeal information from a whole bunch of places.
And the confidence of multiple sources too. I think that's key.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and our legal software that most lawyers use is Westlaw, and it actually has its own AI model in it. Again, I can go do research in Westlaw and pull individual cases and statutes and secondary sources to try to put together my thought process. But then I can ask it specifically what I'm looking for, and it'll pull all that together and almost do a little bit of that analysis for you, and with all the references, so that I can go back and make sure those references are right. But it just makes you so much more efficient.
Big asterisk on the legal and tax use cases. And again, as we've gotten better and better with these models, now we're getting models every 3 or 6 months or so that are better than all the last of them combined. It loves to make up information about legal case precedents. So
but this is
definitely check that.
If you're using just open general AI software. I mean, here we are subscribing to a platform that is legal based. So the only resources it can pull is appellate and Supreme Court case law. Yeah. And so, that's always the caveat, because I'm very careful. We have 10 attorneys here. Some of them are young. And I'm like, all right, look, you're able to use this for anything legal. You can use that for our marketing. You can use that for, newsletter content that you want to put together. But when it's legal analysis, we stick to our subscription-based platform.
And legal is there's a lot of area in legal to apply this software to, or this kind of technology to, and a lot of people are already doing that. But one of the key projects that I did in the beginning of last year, it was the beginning of last year, is I worked with an immigration attorney in Arizona, and they have a framework for how they do T-visa and VAWA cases. And there was 6 parts in one and 8 parts in the other. And there was a full cheat sheet and workbook that they had created for their attorneys. And essentially what we did was that I turned each one of those frameworks into a custom GPT. And they told me that their process to actually create the draft declaration for their clients was 9 hours from the start of writing it to the finished draft. And they go through that framework, and they do their 2-hour interview with the client, and they have some follow-up interviews and things like that. We built that process and turned it into kind of this series of custom GPTs inside of Microsoft. And it took, in their best drafters' hands, the process from 9 hours down to 45 minutes.
Cool.
Yeah.
So it's a big increase.
We are in the process of, we started with some of our business documents and estate planning documents, but it's just conditional use, so that if we draft those provisions, but then we can train it once we make the selections for it to populate the document. So
and it's a great,
looking forward to that.
One of the biggest things that I talk to people a lot about is the lowest hanging fruit is to create custom GPTs, because if you go and look around your business and see what are some of the things that you do or your team does that takes 30, 45 minutes or more multiple times per week, and it has a set of SOPs that it works off of, or a framework document, that is ripe for turning into a custom GPT. And if you're talking about just a 10% gain, you're looking at adding, I think, 180 hours a month to that person's,
which they're
back to their
already
schedule.
spending in screen time,
Right.
which goes back to my original challenge that, I'm working with. It is filling the gap and it's necessary.
Yep.
And so when people challenge, whether this is something we should still explore, I'm of the mindset of it's necessary. Even if you think it's evil, which I do not. I mean, yes, I think things can be misused. Anything can, but it's not inherently evil. But it's necessary.
And it's not
so
going
it must
away
be a
either.
necessary evil. To my point, right? If you take me back when I'm representing companies that sell products 12 years ago and 15 years ago, it's like Amazon. Okay, like we want to be in big box stores, so we can't sell on Amazon because they literally wouldn't put you on the shelf if you were on Amazon. Yeah. Name a product that today isn't on Amazon and on a shelf in a big box store.
Very few.
It was a necessary evil at some point that everyone had to accept.
Yeah.
And, I see it being the same way with AI.
As much as there is, I don't want to say virtue signaling because that's not the right word for it, but as much as people want to preserve the human element of it and not take away jobs and things like that, which is a very valid point, it's not up to us anymore. The masses, the technology, our world is essentially run by these select few tech providers like Google and Microsoft and Oracle, the ones who own all the infrastructure, right? So we are more or less somewhat bending to whatever they put out in front of us. And
don't be a victim.
Yeah.
Adapt and find a way to add value.
Right.
I'm not running away going, oh my gosh, ChatGPT has operating systems. It does. But guess what? They still need me to tell them how to use it.
Right.
They still need me to tell them what accountability looks like.
Exactly.
They still need me to audit those processes. And so you have to lean in. You have to adapt because it's here.
Right. And I think that at the end of the day, like it's going to have more of the human interaction and relationship side of business be more impactful, more valuable
important.
because the information is there. How you deliver it, how you make people feel, how you lead people, how you hold them accountable.
Still important.
It's all of that kind of supposed to be the most valuable piece of business. And if you don't lean into that too, that interpersonal relationships with people, that's where you're gonna have a struggle, right? Because the more technical side of things is gonna be more efficient. Yeah. So you got to get on board with both, and you got to be able to double down on both. So before we kind of wrap up, I have two more questions that I want to ask. One's more of a more practical question. Like, if you were going to get started with AI today, we always talk about chat, but there are some other options out there. What do you recommend people do? And then what are some of the tools outside of chat that you can look into?
Really good question. How do you get started? Do it. Just do it in whatever way, with the understanding that most of them are free. And what you're getting for free, you are the product. Same thing with Facebook and any other platforms that you get for free. You are the product. Your data is the product. So understand that. And a lot of them are not going to give you the absolute best model for free. So that means that OpenAI, for example, ChatGPT, the free version is about 70% as intelligent as the most capable model. That makes a big difference when you're getting information back. So go and do things with the understanding that this might not be right if I'm not paying for it. It may not be the most intelligent version, because I've definitely seen so many cases where we try to do it with the less intelligent version and it totally misses the mark. But as soon as you upgrade to the more capable model, it knocks it out just like that.
And just to be clear, the difference is $20.
The difference is $20
a month for the more capable model of chat. Yeah.
And if you're a business owner and you can't find $20 worth of value, maybe you should reevaluate.
Less dollars than the percentage of efficiency that you will gain.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So
30% more effective for $20.
Yeah. So go into it with the understanding of let me explore this and do upgrade to the most capable model to then try to do your use case again. But just everything that you do, just ask ChatGPT to do it instead, or see how well it comes out. If you look at the tasks that you do and you say, all right, well, can ChatGPT do this task? And if it's multiple steps and it's very complicated, maybe it can't, but can it do 3 of the 5 steps that's in there? Okay, it can do that. So I'm only responsible for this. Perfect. So I've just made an increase.
Jared and I are constantly having conversations with people that want to scale. They come to us because we've grown quickly. And so they see that and they're like, okay, how do I do this? And so we're like, leverage. And so we do this matrices, and you're picking out the things that you are good at and you like doing, all the way down to the things that you are not good at and you don't like doing. So you could literally just take those tasks that you are not good at and don't like doing and start there.
Yep.
Start there. That is your greatest point of leverage.
Be curious. Just be curious. One of the trainings that I had recently was with a group out of Canada that installs solar infrastructure EV infrastructure, and I did a corporate training with them, and we were at the back half of it talking about custom GPTs and how this can do some of their processes. And they told me, they said, well, we have this process that we always do. It's called a takeoff, and we get a job, and they send over the spec sheets of all the materials and measurements and whatever else, and we have to break that down and kind of put it in a plan. And they said, we'd love to try to do something with ChatGPT with that. I said, okay, well, tell me what you do. And they walked through the process, and I said, could you send me one of your documents that you've gotten recently? I actually was recording the meeting at the time. I hit stop. I grabbed the transcript. I put it into Claude, actually, and I said, this is what we're trying to do. This is the document that they're trying to work with. Can you make me a prompt for a system assistant message? And it did it. And then I took that, and I said, all right, here we go, guys. Here's the prompt. I'm going to put your document in, and you told me you do this to begin with. Enter. And what it actually did was probably 80% of what they actually wanted it to do. And they were like, wow, you could do this just by doing that. And they were pleased with that just for something that I did in 5 minutes. And I said, we can take this and make it much smarter. So these are the types of things that you should be doing. Just be curious about it. Go and try and see, because you know how it's supposed to work. And even if you're of the position of this won't be able to do it, no way we'll be able to do it, try it anyway. And then you get to be vindicated when it fails, right?
Yeah.
But if it does work and you get to sit back and go, whoa, it did this when I really wasn't expecting it to, what else can it do?
Yeah.
That's the turning point, the light bulb moment. And I love seeing those light bulb moments with people when they see that it can do something, or maybe it doesn't do all of it, but it does enough to they're like, okay, well, this is actually super valuable for me. That's when things kind of go from there. So the advice is to go and do and be curious and see what you can come out of it. Use the most intelligent model, but try it. See what happens.
I can tell you an example of that. Me and our abstracting examining attorney were in New Orleans. We were trying to figure out the shape. So sometimes people are like, I think that I own this piece of property. Here's a legal description. It's some rural piece of wetlands that, on the water is actually in Slidell in the bayou back there and landlocked. And so we took the legal description that had like this many degrees west and then angles and all that stuff, and we put it in the thing and said, can you plot this? And like it plotted it like
to the T.
crazy. It was
awesome.
super accurate. And like we were able to, because it was like this person thought they owned this piece that looked like this shape, and then we put it in the description in the chat and say, can you plot this? And it looked like the shape of the property next to it. We're like, clearly we need to go down this rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Instead of having to get there and draw it out ourselves. It took it in 10 seconds and gave it to us. So like we were just figuring it out, trying to see if it worked, like you're saying, being curious, and it actually helped us figure out to solve that problem.
Yeah. So you actually asked, it was a 2-part question. I did talk about like how to get started, but some of the other tools, right?
Yeah.
So ChatGPT is kind of like, it broke onto the scene. Everybody's familiar with it. They have 500 million active monthly users, I think now. Claude, which is the parent company, is called Anthropic. Anthropic Claude is as capable, if not more so, than GPT in a lot of cases. It depends on what you're doing. Functions the same way. It has a lot of the same products, functionalities as ChatGPT in the platform, but it still does more or less the same thing. It's a language model.
Pricing?
Same price, $20 per month. Perplexity is the AI search engine. They essentially, which ChatGPT and most all of the major ones have a search function built in now, but they were doing search before everybody else. And what Perplexity will do is give you 30 different website sources for every answer that it provides to you, and it has become my Google. I rarely ever Google anything now, unless it's something that I know will pop up at the end, like the very beginning of what channel is LSU playing on this weekend, right?
Yeah.
So that's a Google, but what's the record, or what was the what did the defense do last game? I'm Perplexity for that.
Am I still top 10 in pole vaulting?
Yeah.
I
haven't actually asked that question. Perplexity, and one cool thing about Perplexity is that it has multiple modes. So you can do just pure writing. So that's actually just like ChatGPT, but they give you access to GPT, to Claude, to DeepSeek's model, as well as Google's Gemini model as well, and their own Perplexity local LLM in there too. So you get to have multiple models for the price of one. It also has academic, so it will search in academic sources if you designate it to, and it will search for videos as well. So a lot of versatility with Perplexity.
I have a feeling I'm going to see these pop up on Jared's credit card.
Maybe. Hey, Perplexity. I love
I'm
Perplexity.
going to just add another line item on the P&L.
Yeah. And
AI subscriptions.
if you're some specialized tools, I use Gamma for presentations. So if you're doing a lot of decks and presentations, PowerPoints, things like that, Gamma is for sure the best one out there in my opinion. It will write a full presentation for you. That's what I'm doing tomorrow. It's built off of Gamma. Notebook LM is another good one thing. I was gonna say that. So Google's product is Notebook LM.
That was the ghost in the corner.
That was the ghost in the corner.
It's hot girlfriend.
The ghost name is Brienne. Notebook LM is really cool because if you saw the viral trend about AI generated audio podcasts, that's where it came from. So you put in a bunch of sources, whether it's one document or you put your Google Docs in there, your Google Drive files, any YouTube videos, and you use those as sources, and it will essentially like act as your academic partner, right? Create me a study guide of this. Answer questions about any of the sources. What did the sources say about this? And so it functions like ChatGPT, but it also has more structure around it, and you can also get those audio podcasts. So a good use case for this is if somebody drops a legal case precedent in y'all's industry, right? If you don't feel like reading that, just drop it in there and have it generate an audio podcast, and it will take it on a walk, and you can listen to what that brief was about that you didn't want to read.
Wow.
Please don't tell him that again. We're still trying to get him to read.
Notebook LMs, but study guides on that too, right? So this is the case precedent, right? What are the key points? How does this make an impact for me as someone who's working in this industry or servicing clients for this? What should I be putting out, right? And it acts as kind of like that study guide.
Well, you have employees that start working in an industry that has some educational backbone to, where you have to know something about what you're going to get into to be able to apply the product. You can give them a study guide of the bullet points on what they need to know in order for them to be more effective and learn faster.
Yep.
I think that's pretty awesome. All right. So the next thing and the last thing I want to talk about is you and your company, right? We've talked a lot about AI and a lot of valuable information for people, but I do want to let people know what you do specifically. You talked about it briefly,
sure,
but let's go into the name of your company and what you do and what service you offer.
Yeah. So my company is called The AI Consulting Lab. Very on the nose. We provide 4 primary services: AI literacy, so corporate training, business education training, how to use these tools, a lot of what we've been talking about tonight or this evening. The next thing is automation consulting. So that's kind of generally the next phase of it. Once you understand what AI can do and how it impacts your processes and the things you do, now let's look at and see what type of technology can we layer in with automations on top of AI, on top of your systems, to get you out of the business and working on the business versus in it. So automation consulting is the next thing. We do CRM build outs for pretty much anybody that wants one. We have a software that's 30 different tools rolled into one that can do pretty much everything that you want to for your marketing and online sales functionalities. So sales tracking, funnels, email marketing, text message marketing, social media calendars, anything like that. And we build those out. And the last thing is just general AI consulting of maybe you own a legacy product that you've built with software and you want to now start incorporating generative AI into that. We'll tell you how to do it. We'll work with your dev team to say, all right, well, this is how you integrate with this, and here's how you put this factor and feature in place, and here's how they work together, and here's go and do this now. And so those are the 4 key pillars that we have. And that is what we do all the time, all day, every day.
Nice. And you're located in Florida,
yes,
St. Pete, but you can help anybody anywhere. You've referenced several clients from across the country.
Yeah, I go anywhere and everywhere. I have traveled all across the world twice to do corporate training. I've been to the UAE to work with the presidential court there for 2 weeks in October of last year. I worked with another state branch in Abu Dhabi in May of last year to do the exact same thing, the corporate training. And I've trained people in Canada. I've trained people here now. I've trained people in California, all over the place.
Cool. And then to wrap it up, if you were going to make 1 point prediction, say something that's going to like break the internet related to AI, what would it be?
God, my brain just immediately like imploded on itself. There's so many things that I could say about that. And I think one of the things that we talk about all the time is as the models and the companies are racing towards two main things, which is building a world model that the AI understands how the world works like we do. It understands context and relationships between things. The AI labs want that, and they want infinite context. So you're limited with how much information you can feed it, and it remembers at any one time. That is growing by the minute. They want infinite context, and at one point in the future, whether that's 5 years from now, 3 years from now, or maybe 10 years from now, it will have the ability to remember everything about your life. So when you are growing up and you broke your arm as a 3-year-old and you're then 28 and 29 and your elbow starts hurting and you don't remember why, you can ask ChatGPT, so, well, it's because you broke your elbow when you were 3 and you have these pins in your elbow now. And those
helpful
pins
and creepy all at the same time.
grow, they can be painful as you age, and they can do all this extra stuff and I don't know whatever else. And to be able to think back of, we grew up analog, right? And I don't remember what happened when I was 3, but if I had an AI in my pocket, my phone that says, what happened when I was 3? You broke your arm. Oh, well, could that be why it now hurts when I do that? Oh yeah, it's for sure why I did it. To have this personalized AI that knows everything about you is pretty scary.
Wow.
Yeah.
But also pretty awesome at the same
Helpful
time.
and creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those 2 words that came to mind.
Well, this was insightful for me.
Yes.
Thanks for having me.
I have some things to talk to Lauren about because we may need to be using your services.
Swiping the credit card.
We're already on that path for sure.
Excellent.
So one pivot, I need a landmark for Ethel, Louisiana. I mean, I feel like I know Louisiana. I don't know Ethel.
Do you know, I can give you like not a landmark, but if you hit 19 in Zachary, so off of I-110, turns right onto 19, take 19 all the way down, and you'll hit Ethel.
Yeah.
There's
How fast do you go through Ethel?
You go through Ethel in about 4 minutes.
Yeah.
There's
It's
no
in
red
East
lights.
Felicia, Louisiana.
Yeah, East Feliciana, 1 red light in the whole parish.
Yeah.
Love it.
There you go.
People got places to go, you know?
Yeah.
What you need red lights for?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's real spread out.
That's why he's in AI. He's full speed.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming, buddy. It was
thanks
really
for having me.
insightful. Yeah.